Okay,
He's like
that's
a
great.
techie.
Hmm.
So at the time he was running his own business. So there was huge upside because like he just gets it.
Yeah.
Like
This is Get Back Season, baby.
also we didn't have no money. Like
Hmm.
we're both starting businesses. Where are
So
we
all
going
your
really?
money's down to there.
Yeah. So there wasn't pressure for that. I think now that I look back, I'm like, we should have done a better job of like protecting our relationship and like prioritizing it.
Yeah.
But equally, maybe it was just a sacrifice that we had to make.
Hmm.
So yeah, there weren't any cute date nights. That's
Yeah,
all.
because I feel like when you have like a relationship, I always say it's very key, especially when, let's just say, you both are go-getters and starting something. I always see it like this, like you have to be like each other's teammates. So like if one of yous fall down, you're gonna pick him back up. If you fall down, he's gonna pick you back up. And I feel like the communication part is like important because I was speaking to my fiance the other day and I was saying like,
Oh,
what
fiance, sorry, I referenced her as girlfriend. Fiance.
What's this? I was speaking to my fiance the other day and like we were talking and I was talking like forward thinking. So I was like, oh, when I get into this realm of like my life and whatnot and I'm busy and this and that, I was like, how would we handle it? Like we're always like having these forward thinking conversations. And she's like, I don't know, And I was like, I guess it's about making time, but sometimes you're so chased, like being like coming from a place that you may have not always had the things that you wanted. It's easy to get when the money's rolling in. It's easy to prioritize the money over like the relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was saying to her, I was like what would happen if like do we need to make sure our communication is stronger and stuff like that? Like we always have like the weirdest conversation. So
It's true though.
so
Like
when
that's absolutely none of
when you're going forward like with the brand and as the brand obviously got bigger and it was taking up more of your time, was there any times where the relationship just like both of you just said, look, like it's a bit rocky at the moment, or was it just plain sailing?
absolutely not. No. No, I think timing worked out really well
Yeah.
because well, I say that but that maybe wasn't the right language. The timing coincided with
Yeah.
like life events for him that required him to really step up in his family and take care of his family,
Yeah.
like his immediate family.
Yeah.
And so both of us, like he was drawn by that and his time was being eaten up by that. My time was being eaten up by business. So it's not like we both had like this free time
Time.
to even like miss, oh my God, we don't do this.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that we did do frequently, and actually don't know how we afforded it, was holidays. Like
that's
there
quite
was
good.
always like a really nice holiday once a year,
Yeah.
somewhere completely different to completely switch up our environment. But away from that, like, yeah, he was building his business, he was taking care of his immediate family, I was building my business,
Yeah.
and yeah, we were both like trying to keep our heads above water.
Water. Nah, I could imagine. I could imagine. So when it comes to like, obviously behind us we see so many different brands and stuff like that. Obviously, with you not, let's just say, having no prior experience to having like your own business,
Yeah.
where did you start? How did you learn to basically build what you build now? Like when it comes to reaching out to brands and partnerships, because I feel like, especially to those that are listening, whether it's the younger men or the younger women that potentially want to be in a space of having their own stuff, I feel like the scariest part is where do I start and what do I do? How did you figure out that route, if that makes sense? Or is it just trial and error?
A few different ways. So I have a distinct memory of me like the day after I handed in my notice. Treasuretress has about 30 customers at this point. So
Yeah.
I've got people that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
And I just had like this massive calendar in front of me and it was just blank. And that was the first time that like I had this much free time and I was like, what do I do with this? And it was so intimidating. Funny enough, I'm actually working on a calendar for that reason because what I really mastered was like time management.
Yeah.
But I remember looking at the calendar and thinking, oh my God, like what am I going to do next? And I was like, okay, what is the next logical thing that I need to do? Well, I need to speak to a brand. Okay, how do I do that? And I literally worked backwards from everything. How I got the confidence to even approach brands was during my time when I was interning for free in New York.
Yeah.
I was working for a guy called BJ Coleman and his clients were like Tatiana Ali, Vivica Fox, Tyson Beckford.
Wow.
And he asked me to help him build pitch decks to like get food sponsorship, drink sponsorships.
Well
and so forth.
connected. Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually coming to London this month, so we'll catch up. But yeah, I remember pitching to, he taught me how to pitch to brands,
Yeah.
basically. It was very different in the UK because no one knew what subscription boxes were. Black brands were absolutely not featuring their products in subscription boxes as they stood at the time.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of cold calling, thinking about, okay, cool, what did I include in that pitch deck? Let me do it again. I exhausted every communication channel, from like email to cold calling to like going to events and talking to people.
Yeah.
I remember like dipping into my savings to go to Atlanta, to go to a hair show, to meet these brands face to face, because I was like, these brands aren't coming to me.
Yeah.
Like, I absolutely have to go to them. So
Yeah.
it was me, one of my best friends. Thankfully, I've got family in Atlanta, so we stayed there.
Yeah.
And every day we was just out talking to brands, because I was like, this needs to happen.
That's crazy. So was it more of a situation where were you just emailing from scratch saying like, this is the idea I have, I'd want to partner with you? Is it just as easy, like not easy, but is it just as a simple email, or is it like a lot more like
No,
after
there's a lot
that?
more. So thankfully we had a landing page before we had the actual website, and that was for me to do like market research. Who would be interested? How much would they be willing to pay? Where in the UK do they live?
Yeah.
And thankfully one of the brands that signed up, no, a brand signed up for that, as well as like regular consumers.
Yeah.
And it was someone from Palmer's. So that was like the first brand that I ever worked with. And that's why it's the brand that like I
Old type
stand
Palmer's.
by.
Been using Palmer's since I could remember.
But they're honestly like such an authentic and genuine brand. They were like, hey, love the idea, would love to speak more. And so yeah, from there I built a relationship with them. But obviously that's one brand, one box. I've got to deliver 11 other boxes that year. So I need 11 other partnerships.
Yeah.
And so I started to reach out to brands like, hey, recently worked with Palmer's, always name drop.
Yeah.
Find a deck attached.
Yeah.
A bit about the brand. This is what we're doing, and kind of just like built up from there. But it's literally like social proof, as far as like links to like they can see the active work that we're doing.
Yeah.
I was really focusing on community building by events as well, so I was able to link to that content.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just like, hey, I worked with this brand, this is what we were able to do with them, and just constantly providing evidence of the value of what you're working on.
That's quite good. Like, I feel like there's a lot of networking that's involved, if that
So
makes
much.
sense. And I always say like that's important. Like on my Instagram, I always speak that because before I started this podcast, anyone that knows me well, I'm naturally like an introvert. I never used to talk to anyone. Like,
Oh, so am I.
yeah, my dad's in the military, so I always used to move around a lot. So I kept on going to different places, and then I got fed up of making friends because I'm just gonna leave. So I just said, you know what, it's probably best to just not talk to anyone, and then that way I don't have to like feel like I'm leaving someone, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And then as I got like older and I like the moving slowed down, they're still a bit busy, but it slowed down. Started talking a bit more, but I was a lot more reserved. And like when I started this podcast, it always taught me like networking. That's what kicked in, because I remember I sat down, I was like, okay, how can I grow it? How am I able to get this? I said, you know, I'm just gonna have to reach out to people. So I remember I started like, I always tell people Instagram is a big place. Like if you use it properly, you'll be able to get responses.
Yeah.
I always say, don't feel like everybody is untouchable just because they may have a blue tick. And the first time I realized that, so I remember when I was doing A levels, I studied media studies was one of the parts, and we had to, for one of our assignments, we had to shoot a documentary.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, and I've always been a fan of like music and the music industry. That's like that's my bag in a sense. So I remember I was like, okay, music industry. Instantly, even though I was young, I was only like 15, 16 at the time, I was like, let me go reach out to celebrities on Instagram. I don't know what possessed me. I was like,
It's like that young naivety.
yeah, I was like, Krypton Conan, hey, blah, blah. I like drafted like a message. I was like, oh, hi, I'm just a A-level student, blah, blah, blah. I reached out to Wretch32. I reached out to Chipmunk, like so many different artists, Pagey Cakey and stuff like that. And then one of them actually, no, I got two replies. So I think it was Wretch32's manager replied, and he was there like, oh, unfortunately, you won't be able to do it. He's busy, blah, blah, blah. So to me, that gave me just the fact that I got a response. I was like, oh, I got excited.
Yeah.
And then the one that really got me excited, because at the time, I think she was on Waterloo Road. I think that's the right one. Pagey Cakey replied. And she was like, oh, yeah, this is sick. I'd love
She's
to.
so lovely.
Yeah, she was like, oh, yeah, I'd love to jump on. And my excitement was through the roof. I was like, yeah, this is so cool. And she was like, message my manager and we'll go from there and see, because it wasn't up to her at the time if she can just fully jump on. Message her manager. Long story short, it didn't end up happening. Her manager was like, "Oh, she's busy doing this, doing that, so unfortunately, we won't be able to do it." But long story short, I think I ended up reaching out to this Birmingham rapper. I think his name's Big Dog Yogo. I think that's the name. Ended up reaching out to this Birmingham rapper, and he said, yeah, he'll do a bit of just like a little short interview or whatnot.
Nice.
But then it gets worse. So then that didn't happen. So I remember I had to basically role play and act like I was an artist, and then I was interviewing from a perspective of being an artist.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So filmed the documentary. So that was like my first like idea of networking.
Nice.
But then when I got in the podcast, that's when I think it really truly kicked in, because then I started like researching people that are brand owners or businesses. And then luckily, I always say I may be quiet, but I know a lot of people through different industries. So I was able to reach out to certain people, and I was like, each time you got to know, I kind of learned how to restructure what I was saying to kind of make it more presentable. And then eventually, I think now it's probably the easiest it's been for me when it comes to networking, because like I'll instantly write a message. Like some people write generic messages, but every single message I write is personal to that person, if that makes sense. And I wouldn't say it's like it just comes like this now, but it's a lot more easier. And that's one thing I always have the conversation with either my work colleagues, and I always say like, if you want to start a business, just message people just to say, can I learn? If if you need help, I'll do it for free or whatnot. Because those things, I always say experience is something that you can't lose. So it's always important that you network in order to build. Because I always say your net worth is your net worth or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's important. So when it comes back like to your brand then, and you're traveling over to America and whatnot. So when you started getting those responses, how did you actually like feel about it? Was like, when did you realize this can actually go somewhere, if that makes sense?
I would say before I even took it full time.
Really?
Otherwise, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Like I knew it had legs.
Yeah.
Because when we worked on, and we still work on, a pre-order system. So you pay for your box and then your box arrives.
Yeah.
So when that first set of orders when we received the first set of orders, there was an order from South Africa. And
wow.
I was like, what in the world? Like, I built this for women in the UK. Not only have women in the UK signed up, but someone in South Africa has signed up. And that for me was a signal like, okay, cool, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just a local problem, even though I thought I was solving a local problem. Now I know that I'm solving a global issue.
Yeah.
And so that gave me the confidence to be like, okay, cool, no, this is something. I'm onto something here.
That's good. That's very important. So would you say like having self-belief, because I feel like a lot of like, especially the younger generation that are watching, I feel like we're always on social media, because you can always see the end goal of someone else's success. I feel like we don't see what people go through behind the scenes. So would you say like that self-belief part, or having that self-belief, if you go into something thinking you're going to fail, would you say 9 times out of 10 you're probably going to fail? Whereas if you go in there thinking, let's just say, you know what, I'm going to smash it, it's going to be good, it's going to be great, like you'll get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Or I think even better, like I'm either going to smash it or I'm going to have a great experience and I'm going to learn so much.
Yeah.
Like
that's important.
This, like, what is failure? Because you even said like you were reaching out to people when you're getting a no.
Yeah.
It's fine because you were able to take that and reevaluate how you were reaching out to make sure that you could send a message that was actually successful and got you the end result. So it's like, yes, either you win or you learn. There's no real losing.
No, that's very true. I always say like it's important to just have a positive attitude towards things. Like I always tell people, like when I talk to even my close circle or whatnot, they always say like, Rich, I'm not naive, but they're like, you live in a different world, because I see it like most days I'm like a perky, like happy person or whatnot, but it's like I don't see today as today. I see it like, okay, I'm gonna be there in the future, if that makes sense. And there's no ifs and no buts. It's like our first episode, I remember we were talking about Reese from, the owner of Manière d'Ivoire, the clothing brand.
Yeah.
We were talking about him, and literally I was talking to my co-host at the time, and I was like, yeah, when we post this video, he's definitely gonna see it, blah blah blah. And he was like, nah, man, he's a busy person, million of subscribers, his business is huge, he's not gonna see it. He may not be. I was like, trust me, he's gonna see it. Posted the video, and I think at like 1 o'clock at night time, I got a notification. Reese liked the video. Reese commented. He was like, "Yeah, I appreciate it." Blah blah blah. And I was like,
See?
"Yeah." So I always say like you have to. I'm a big believer in like speaking into existence.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
No, that's quite good. When it comes to then like your brands, obviously you've worked with a whole lot of brands. Has there ever been like any hard parts, whether that's networking or did you ever have to like get rid of a brand, if that makes sense?
Yeah, got a lot of experiences there. So we've worked with over 250 brands.
Wow.
In various different capacities.
Yeah.
And it was a hard sell from the get-go. Because globally, when we think of black women, we immediately think of African American women.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think of a black woman in the UK when you hear black woman. You think of a black woman in the US.
Yeah, 100%.
And so when I was speaking to brands, they were like, the UK is not my priority. Like, American brands, the UK is not their priority.
It's because the demographic in
So much
America is so much bigger.
And they see it as a bigger opportunity. And then UK brands were like, again, black women are not their priority. Like, if you're a brand in the UK, we're 2% of the population. Like, they want to focus on not the 98%, but like at least the 90%, which are white.
Yeah.
So again, we're not the priority. So it was
100%.
like trying to sell something that I knew was an issue for our community to someone that belongs in another community who doesn't necessarily care.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking, all right, cool. Well, if I can't get the message across, the best way to deliver a message, if you can't cut through, is like through numbers.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
numbers don't lie. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to look up like how much black women spend in the UK, blah, blah, blah. And I could not find anything. I could only find information on African American consumers.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a nightmare because this actually isn't helping me validate anything. Fast forward to 2021, we released a white paper, which was like the first white paper or first piece of literature that actually documents how much black women spend in the UK, especially in the hair and beauty industry.
Yeah.
And that was like a massive full circle moment because it was like perfect. Like there was such an issue with the lack of transparency of how much black consumers actually spend and our worth that brands weren't paying attention. And then I was able to present something to the industry that says like, boom, like this is how much we're worth. This is how much we spend. Unfortunately, by that time, the brands were kind of on board.
Yeah.
But releasing that paper was definitely a tipping point because I saw people signing up from Tesco's, Morrison's, Mintel, like loads of different companies who were finally paying attention because they finally had the numbers to justify what they knew was an issue, but because they didn't have the numbers, they couldn't sell it to their management.
Yeah, because it's a numbers game at the end of the day.
It's absolutely a numbers game. Like, once people know what they're missing out on, then they get more interested. Because up until then, it was like, yeah, we know there's black women. For American brands, it was like, oh, there's black people in the UK?
UK.
Like, they didn't know. And then for UK brands, it was like, no, they don't spend enough. No, I don't think it's that much of an issue. And so it was literally like 5 years of fight. Even now, it's not as simple as it should be. But yeah, it was 5 years of like trying to validate how much, like the fact that there are black people in the UK, that they will spend money on your products if they just get the chance to try them.
100%. Look how many like beauty queens and packs they are. And not gonna lie, majority of the reason why there's so much is because of us. Like,
oh, we're the whole reason.
Yeah, we're the whole reason, and I think that's what baffles me a lot of the times. Like, that's why for me, like this interview was important because when like growing up, I'd see my mum go to Beauty Queen or Packs or whatnot, get hair products from there. And I always used to think for myself, even at a young age, I'm like, why does not a black person own, like, I only see black people in these type of shops.
Yeah.
Why do we not own any? If that makes sense. Like, it really, really baffled me. And then like as I got older, I started to realize, especially in like the women's industry, because I was grown around like a lot of women, if that makes sense. I was raised by a whole community of women, and it was one of those situations where I realized, I was like, especially as you said, when you go to like, let's just say Tesco or your Boots or Superdrug, the variety of black hair products were very like limited, like super limited.
There was literally one brand.
Literally, and it made me think, I think the first ever black one I kind of saw was, obviously there was Palmer's, and they used to do like I I think it was like their curling creams and stuff. But the big ones that I started to see in Superdrug was Cantu at the time. And that alone, I think prices when they first came out was like £15 per like bottle or jar, and made me realize like in the like hair industry, I don't know, I feel like they don't accept diversity. I feel like they just realize that they like to think anyways that these products can just assume like it can cater for all women, if that makes sense. Whereas obviously as a black woman, our hair types or whatnot are so like different and diverse, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's like, I don't even want to say it's naivety. I don't think it's naivety. I think it's like laziness.
I think it's laziness as well. I feel like there's not enough people, I think, within the company to kind of say, why don't we look over there, if that makes sense? Because at the end of the day, that's the reason I don't necessarily bash them at times, because if you're not aware to what's going on, you don't have someone probably within that demographic to kind of explain to you, look, this is an issue, why don't we try over there? Then you kind of will never really realize, if that makes sense.
Social media is allowed.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, that's the thing.
When you're hiring and you're taking your team photos, you know there's not a black person in that photo.
And I think that's my biggest thing, like especially when I finished uni. I did sports management, but obviously I have a lot of business experience, so I was looking at like marketing jobs to begin with. And I don't know if anyone else does this, like let me know down below in the comments if you probably do, but I'd look at like, you know, when you click on the website and you'll see like our team, you get to scroll through. I would scroll through always and I'm like, okay, like, let me hope that I find like either an Asian person or a black person. And I would look and I'm like, oh, there's no, I'll be like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And I'll just look for another job, and like some may call it like stuck up or whatever, but for me, there's just something there's something about walking into a room and seeing someone that looks like you, or like at least you feel like you can have a conversation and it will be understood, if that makes sense. I feel like it's very important in like the world and like within like workplaces, but I don't feel like it's pushed. And even if it does, I feel like it's forced now. I feel like they have certain percentages where they're like, yeah, we need this amount of black people, this amount of Asian, and I'm there just like, why does it have to be like that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, but again, if it gets measured, it gets managed. And without them putting them percentages, they are not making any progress or any steps in the right direction.
No, 100%.
But I will also say that the way that brands or companies have got around that issue of like going through the website and not seeing anyone is that now they ask the one black intern to come and take photos. And then they use that all across the website and all across the social media to make it seem like it's a diverse company, when it's actually not.
And then it's really not. So going more into like the business then around like costing, because like one thing I was thinking like with subscription boxes, especially from the box that you gifted me that time when I came down, and thank you again, my missus as well, she was like, thank you very much, she loved the box. We were looking at some of the products in there, and like when we were going into like Boots or Superdrug, like one item could be like £14, if that makes £13. And obviously I think your boxes range from 40 to 45, if I'm not wrong.
So the subscription's £25 a month.
Yeah.
If you get it monthly, and then it goes up incrementally to about £35.
Okay, so when we were looking at that, I was like, I was intrigued to how does the company make money, if that makes sense? Because I was seeing it as like, okay, one product is like £13-14, but you probably get like 5-6 good products in there. So I was like how do you go about making money? Is it through brands? Is it through the sponsorships? Like I didn't know how it all worked.
Yeah, so for brands, Treasuretress is a marketing tool.
Yeah.
So Boots and Superdrug are a retailer. Treasuretress isn't necessarily a retailer.
Yeah.
We're a marketing tool for them. So we're the way that they can get their sample. We're the way that they can get samples of their products out to the consumer.
Yeah.
The only catch that we have, and something that I was non-negotiable on, is that I don't want sample sizes, because I can't tell if a product works well for me if I've only tried a little bit. Like I want a decent sized bottle so I can use it 3 times and then make my decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't operate in the same way as retailers. We operate as a marketing tool that they can put the money behind through sponsorships.
Yeah.
Through additional fees, in order to make sure that their products get out there.
Yeah.
Into the hands of the right women that they wouldn't otherwise be able to target black, mixed race, multi-ethnic, curly men or women.
Yeah.
If they weren't working with Treasuretress, really.
That's quite good. So it's like one big like marketing campaign, if that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's a different way of like seeing it, if that makes sense. So adding on to that, I feel like with the brand and when it comes to networking, I've seen that you've recently, probably not recently, but you've partnered with, what's that woman called from Girlfriends?
Tracy Ellis Ross.
Yeah, and her products, I've just been hearing crazy
Oh,
reviews.
exceptional.
Like when I gave it to my missus, she was like, "That's one of the best products she has like used," and like
Truth.
she's seen on TikTok and stuff like that, and she was like, "What's all the hype about?" And then obviously when she got it, she was like, "There's no other brand that she wants to use other than that." So when it came to that partnership, like, was it
First of all,
you?
I need that clip because that is like the whole point of Treasuretress. Like you see the hype,
Yeah.
but when you try it yourself and you know that it works, you become a loyal customer.
Yeah,
But do
100%. So how did you make that like partnership with her? Because obviously she lives over in America. Was it she reached out to you, or was it like you reaching out to her? Like how did that all like work, if that makes sense?
It all kind of came together serendipitously because
Whoa,
we
hold on. Like just big words. So
it all came together perfectly.
That was an amazing word.
Because-
So wait, can you repeat that one more time for me?
serendipitously.
What does that mean?
So like serendipity. So like everything happened at the same time at the right time, and it all came together perfectly.
Yeah, your mum was definitely a teacher, but yeah.
But there was a few different ways. So one way was that obviously it's sold in retailers, and one of the first questions retailers ask brands are, "How are you marketing?"
Yeah.
And now a lot of brands are saying, "Oh, we're marketing through Treasuretress." So
quite good.
one way. Second way was when I was looking at who downloaded the trend report that we released.
Yeah.
Her team had downloaded it, so that meant that they knew of Treasuretress through the data that we had put out there.
Yeah.
Third way was the distributors that they used to bring the products from the US to the UK. They were like, "Hey, what's your marketing plan, Treasuretress?"
Yeah.
So it's like in a few different ways, people were mentioning Treasuretress, and then we got a meeting set up with them. Agreed the feature, agreed the takeover box. Her team absolutely exceptional. And they were like, "Yeah, we don't want to just do the box, like we want to do a sleeve, we want it to go above and beyond." And we were like, absolutely into it. We need to do something iconic.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until we were building the shop in Birmingham that we got a video from someone on her team, Amy on her team, and it was Tracy unboxing the video and I unboxing our boxes, and I was like, "Oh my days, this is literally a career highlight," because she unboxed it. She said Treasuretress properly, which is impressive because a lot of people mess it up. And she was able to explain what we are and like her focus and her passion for the UK curly girls. And it was just so epic. So it was in the pipeline for a long time because I was asking like retailers, distributors, like, "Hey, that pattern brand, I want it. Like, how can I get it?"
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, it's not ready yet. It's not UK compliant yet." Okay, how long is it until it's UK compliant? 2 years. Okay, cool. Hi, 1 year later. Hey, how's it going? Like, how long until that brand? Okay, cool. They just got listed in Boots. Perfect. Cool. How can we get it in the box? And then, so it was almost like Treasuretress was being mentioned in rooms that I wasn't in.
That's
based on the work that we were doing.
That's amazing.
But equally, I was pursuing the brand and saying like, "Hey, when are you coming to the UK? Like, let's do a campaign. Let's make it big."
So that hunger was just like there, like it was just consistent.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Like certain brands, when we see them, like there's brands that we pursue for like 3 years. That's why it's so frustrating when people are like, "Hey, I haven't seen this brand." And we're like, first of all, they need to get their compliancy correct. Like they need to make sure that it's formulated in a way that is acceptable for this country because the US and the UK are very, very different. And two, like I like people asking for brands in public, so like in our comment section on our page and tagging the brands.
It shows how
then it puts pressure on the brands that like there's women in the UK who want to try this. Like, don't drag your feet with compliancy and all the other things because you're missing out on an opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's
So
100%.
yes, a bit of give and take to make those epic moments.
That's crazy. Like, big kudos to you because starting your brand from where you started it and to get someone as iconic as her, like partnering with it, and plus, as you said, like her doing a whole video.
Yeah,
like that's a milestone.
I don't know how much we would have had to pay for that. Like, I don't think we had the budget for that. But we literally got in an email, and I think it was like the night before we were opening the store.
Yeah.
very stressful moments, and it literally like turned the whole thing around. I was
I
like,
could
okay,
just
this is gonna be
imagine
epic because
3
Trace has
a.m.
graced us.
3 a.m. You're just screaming, like looking at it, like what the hell?
I was like, oh my god. At first, I thought she was just gonna like hold the box,
Yeah.
but she explained everything perfectly, and I was like, this is so epic, man. She's a G.
No, that's quite good. So when it comes to like support, then obviously we've talked about like the support of your relationship, your husband, your friendship, and whatnot. But I think most importantly, as like a culture, do you feel like you're supported by, well, your brand is supported by the Black community? Would you say,
I have to say
or do you
yes.
feel like there's more that can be done?
I think we need to. I think there's lots of learning that we have to do. So I don't think we've seen businesses mature in the Black community the way the Asian community has or the white community
100%.
has.
Yeah.
So, like, what you even see in like the response to brands and founders who decide to exit their brands, they get like this huge backlash because they've decided to sell their business.
Yeah.
But selling your business is like such an everyday transaction in business for everyone else, but for the Black community,
And we see it as, oh, you sold
sold
out.
out,
Yeah.
So I think we still got some education and some learning to do there. But yeah, Treasuretress wouldn't be Treasuretress without community. Like, Black women have stood behind Treasuretress, told their friends, told their daughters, told their cousins.
Yeah.
I do think that as a Black business, you get held to like a ridiculous standard.
Yeah, 100%.
It does force us to be like, to always strive to be excellent and like over deliver.
Yeah.
Which sometimes can be to our own detriment because it can get really exhausting because you're constantly trying to reach this level that no other brand is being held to. But equally, yeah, Treasuretress wouldn't exist without Black women, even Black men telling their partners, their mums, their sisters.
Yeah.
So many Black men come into our pop-up shops when we have them.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember you posted a video, and I think it was either two brothers or two
yeah,
twins or something.
they are so damn cute.
And
them
they
two
came,
twins.
yeah, they
Yes.
came down to get, I think it was either for their sister, their mom, or whatever it
They
was.
came 3 times each and bought boxes, and I was like, what? Like, no one can ever say that Black people don't support Black people because we really do.
Nah, I feel like we really do, and I think especially within like the recent years, like obviously with there being COVID, George Floyd, and all of those stuff that happened, I feel like that kind of really shed a light. I think that was one of the first times I actually seen Black people come together. Weirdly enough, I feel like especially in the UK, I feel like at times we're easily like divided, if that makes sense. So when all of those things were happening, and I think it's the creators of the Black Pound Day and stuff like that.
Yes.
That was one of the first times I really saw like, okay, Black people, like it was really such a thing. Okay, support Black businesses. At first I was against it. The only reason why, because it was one of those things I was like,
How long is it gonna last?
one, how long is it gonna last? And then two, it was one of those situations I was like, why do we need a day that we choose to support Black businesses? Like the other cultures support their businesses every single day, like if that makes sense. So why do we kind of have to highlight one day, let's just say, to be like, okay guys, we need to support? I feel like if you're going to support something, it should just come natural, if that makes sense. But then as I kind of did my research and started to understand it, I was like, it is important, even though it's just one day. I feel like it sheds a light of what type of other businesses they are out there. And then for me myself, like I made it like a huge priority of mine, like to make sure I'm supporting, because I'm always like, oh, why isn't our community growing? Why isn't that this? But then I have to look at myself. I'm like, but what am I doing? Like I'm just
like,
complaining.
what role are you playing?
Yeah, I'm not playing a role. So I always make it make it my absolute like thing to, even if I'm buying clothes, I'll research first. Like, okay, what upcoming brands are there first, and I'll give it a try. So far, I haven't had certain lucks. Like I've ordered from a few companies. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna order again. But at least I make the first transaction to make sure I'm helping, I'm supporting. If that
I would
makes
say
sense.
even with that, like the ones that you've tried that you think, oh, do you know what, I'm not going to order again.
Yeah.
I don't know if you already do this, but reaching out to them and giving feedback privately, not publicly on their Trustpilot or on their Instagram page. Reaching out to them privately to say like, hey,
I actually did that, you know. Yeah. So I remember there was this one brand, because I really liked their joggers at the time. They came out with like cargo joggers, which I hadn't seen like about. So I bought it, and the fit was a bit off, stitching was a bit off, and instead of running to social media like I feel like a lot of us do, I don't know why, maybe it's for clout or something, I was like, you know what, let me just find the owner. And I just messaged him. I was like, hi, thank you, received your product. However, with me also having my own previous brand before, I know the type of things to look for. So I was like, oh, this was slightly off, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that. And he was like, oh, thank you. I really respect it. I didn't realize we're probably going to hit the drawing board back again
Yeah.
because I feel like you can't always get things perfect.
No.
There's no such thing as perfection. And at times, unfortunately, it could just be one dodgy product. Maybe it wasn't the whole brand. Maybe it was just that one thing, if that makes sense. So I totally agree with you. I'm big on at least mentioning to people, you could do this, because I feel like when it comes to feedback, when it comes to constructive criticism, it can help that brand or that
Absolutely.
person progress, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's 100% important.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. That's really good. So when it comes to then like the brand, and obviously it's grown and whatnot, and then stepping into 2023, separating from the brand, what type of goals have you kind of set that you said, you know what, I'm gonna work towards? Like, what's the next step? What, like, for yourself then?
For me personally,
For you
as opposed to Treasuretress.
Yeah, yeah,
For me personally, it's actually to take better care of myself,
yeah,
because I bootstrapped Treasuretress for 7 years, which means that like it has been a ridiculous amount of sweat equity.
yeah,
So like long hours, traveling wherever I need to travel, like just going absolutely ham.
yeah,
But I don't feel like I prioritize my self-care, and not in terms of like deep conditioners and facials, because that stuff I do.
yeah,
But it's like, am I getting enough sleep? Am I being consistent with the gym? Am I like taking care of my actual physical body and like my actual mental health? So
yeah,
I found a new therapist last year who's absolutely amazing, and signed up to a new health center so that I can benefit from gym, sauna, steam room, and like really take care of myself. Clearly didn't eat because my belly's rumbling. Take better care of myself.
yeah,
So yeah, that's the main thing for me, to like invest in myself and take better care of myself. And invest in myself is like, what price am I willing to pay to access new circles and to learn new knowledge? Because again, previous years, like my investments were like, okay, cool, let me go this place to meet this person for Treasuretress. But actually, no, like, who do I need to meet to expand my mind, which will ultimately have a knock-on effect on my business and what other businesses I decide to start.
yeah.
So this year, I think the biggest investment I've ever made was going to Necker Island.
Yeah. I saw that. Was it
yeah.
Richard Branson?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw that, and I was like, that's crazy that you even got connections with Richard Branson. How was that like? Because him being, I assume he's a billionaire now. Multi-billionaire. I was like, how does that feel, being in the presence of, like, let's just say, as you as a kid growing up, you may not think you're going to be around certain like circles or whatnot, but to you, like, being on the island, you have literally a billionaire across from you, or you're having conversations with the whole team and whatnot. Like, what is that experience like?
I think I'm a little bit like you, where you said like you're just a bit unrealistic. Like, I'm quite delusional.
Yeah.
Like, there was no. My goal is to own a private island.
Yeah.
So me being on a private
That's
island
crazy.
was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I deserve to be here. Like, there was a part of me that was before like, oh my God, like, are there going to be other black girls there?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to be there? And I was like, do you know what? I don't care. Like, I'm going to this island. I want to see what it's like, because if I want an island of myself, I need to get familiar.
Yeah.
And the mad thing is, like, when we speak about speaking things into existence, way back, me and my friend had this running joke that we're going to buy an island and we're going to like split the name between our surnames.
Yeah.
And so way back in 2016, when I was doing my vision board, I put a picture of an island on there. And then as I was packing for Necker Island, I thought, do you know what? I don't actually know what this island looks like.
Yeah.
So then I Googled it, and it was literally the same image, the exact same image that I had on my vision board since 2016.
That's crazy.
And I got chills, and I think I even got tears in my eyes, because I was like, this is mad.
Yeah.
Like, I knew that I was going in the right direction, but that was confirmation that, like, yeah, you're absolutely meant to be going on this trip.
Yeah.
Because this is the island that you've had on your vision board for all of those years, and you've been like subconsciously just taking it in. And then I was like, wow, I'm actually going to the island.
Be there. Yeah.
So it was literally one of the best experiences of my life.
Nah,
I've
I'm happy
never
for
been
you.
to such a beautiful island.
Yeah.
And then as far as what it felt to be like amongst Richard Branson, very fine. Like, I think it makes you dream even bigger, because you realize he's such an ordinary person.
Yeah, they're just normal people, like
Such
you
an
and me.
ordinary person. He was just walking around the island, talking to everyone.
Yeah.
He had a bit of a cold, so he was a lot more subdued than I think he usually is.
Yeah.
But he was literally like, hey, I hear a London accent. And literally it's a
Conversation. That is crazy.
So it makes you realize that, as you said, like literally no one
Yeah.
is out of reach.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I was coming back from Necker Island and there was this group chat that was created and I was looking back at the pictures and I thought like, yeah, haha, just laughing back at all the memories.
Yeah.
And then I saw that there was a picture that was put in the group by someone called Richard.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's no way Richard Branson's in this WhatsApp group.
He was in the WhatsApp
He was in the WhatsApp group the whole time. And I was like, no one is inaccessible.
No, that's 100%. I like the fact that you've told that story because one, like, it doesn't only just give me like motivation because I'm listening to that. I'm like, that is crazy, if that makes sense. But then I'm hoping that the people that are listening at home or in their car, whatever it is, it's one of those ones where they're like, wait, if she can do it, then why can't I? Because how I see it, it's just like a person like Richard Branson, once upon a time before he had his businesses, he was just, well, he is still a normal person, but he was just a normal person going to school, like me and you.
A dyslexic, normal person that was told that like, oh no, like just give up.
Yeah.
And decided to pursue something and then watched it evolve, well, made it evolve and like pivoted so many different times to create so many different entities of Virgin.
Yeah.
Now it's like, definitely one of the biggest brands on earth.
Nah, it blows my mind. So tying it up then, I feel like when it comes to like having that circle and that connection around you, do you have a mentor? Have you ever had like mentors in the past or whatnot? Because I feel like I always speak, especially like within my close circle, I have myself a mentor, and I always say like, to me, I always push people. If that's one thing I could say, everyone should get a mentor because it's important to have someone that's either experienced life already and can kind of share those like experiences with you, or whether that's within the business field, someone that's had their business and failures and whatnot, they can point you in certain directions so you can either avoid them or at least it's going to give you certain more knowledge on how to like handle it when it comes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how important would you say like having a mentor is?
Transformational.
Is it?
Yeah. Like, I don't think my 20s would have been as epic as they were had I not had a mentor.
Yeah.
And I know that it was epic because I was invited to Necker Island by one of my mentors because he was the host at Necker Island.
That's crazy.
So everyone's like, how did you get there? Like, how'd you get there? Like, how'd you travel there? No, you can't just travel there.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be invited.
Yeah.
And I was invited because my mentor, not really we're more friends now, but maybe like 5 years ago, we were speaking every 2 weeks. He was like, hey, Jamelia, how's this going? How's this going? How's this going?
Yeah.
And funny story about that. First of all, he's a white American guy that I would have never met on a regular day in London.
Yeah.
I was in Atlanta coming back from one of the hair shows. I was 2 hours early for my flight. So I was just walking around the airport, found a juice bar, thought, okay, cool, let me get a juice. There was this white guy standing behind me. He was like, hey, I like your watch. And I was like, thanks. Started talking about the watch.
Yeah.
What do you do? I was like, I'm working full time, but I'm launching this brand. He was like, oh, okay, I own this company, cosmetics, personal care company. We're sold in Walmart. We're sold in Target. I was like, amazing.
That's crazy.
Would love to stay in contact.
Yeah.
Stayed in contact. And then, as I said, had those like bi-weekly calls, built a relationship, and then have continued to go. Like, we don't have those same kind of calls now.
Yeah.
It's more like, hey, how's it going? Like,
checking in.
This is what I'm facing. This is what I'm facing. But he went last year and I was like, Necker Island looks sick. How was it? He was like, oh, it was so good. Like, do you want to come? And I was like, of course. So, then it goes to show that, like, it's absolutely important to have mentors that are further ahead than you.
Yeah.
I also think there's huge upside to having mentors who have a completely different life.
Yeah,
from you.
100%.
Because as I said, he's not someone that I would have met on a day-to-day. But equally, I have had other mentors in the past that are like black women who look like me, a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
Actually, like 5 years older than me. Who have done what I've done, or like people who are experienced in sectors that I'm getting into so I can learn from them.
Yeah.
I think there's huge value in having multiple, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, I feel like it is very important because with a mentor, it's one of those ones where they give you knowledge that you probably haven't heard before. They give you direction. It's like having, I don't know, it's like a parent in a sense, but it's more of a more professional manner. And I feel like especially when you have the right mentors or mentor behind you, it's like the sky's your limit, if that makes sense. Like, I remember I've had 2 so far. There's one literally down in London. That he's a doctor and he was basically like for the mental state, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like when we would talk, we would have like mental stimulating like conversations, if that makes sense, that kind of improves my motivation, allows me to continue to be like more inspired. And then in Birmingham, I've got a mentor that's in the property business, because long term, well, short term really, that's where the field that I kind of want to get. I want to buy some property, I want to invest, etc. So I feel like having mentors in the spaces that you kind of potentially want to go in, it helps, because I can ask a million, instead of like Googling, I can literally just pick up the phone. So what do you like? How do you do this? Or can I just come to your office and can I spend the day with you? How do you deal with clients? And I feel like having like that type of outlet can literally like project you so far, if that makes sense. Especially if you're younger, like even when you're older, it doesn't matter. Like, but from a young perspective, because I feel like when you're younger, you could be ahead, if that makes sense, of your age. But because of your age, I feel like some people tend to look down on you, so you're unable to get certain experiences. But if you have a mentor, like I wish I had a mentor at 16.
Yeah.
Like if that was the case, I feel like obviously I'm right where I need to be at the moment. But I feel like if I was exposed to a different type of knowledge rather than just school textbook knowledge, if that makes sense, it's like you can go so much further, if that makes sense, which I feel like it is important.
I completely agree.
No, 100%. So wrapping it up, I feel like obviously we've spoken about business, we've spoken about the past, how you started, friendship groups. What type of advice then, if you could give 2 strong advice to either people that are watching, listening, what advice would you give someone, a little girl, little boy, whatever, growing up and saying, okay, I want to start a business, not necessarily hair business, but just in general, I want to start a business. What would you say to them? Or what would you even say to your younger self? If you could go back to when you were 15, 16 or whatnot, what would you say to yourself?
Just get started with what you have. Because I think a lot of the time we're like, oh, do you know what? When I get this website or when I get this web designer or when I get this, then I'm going to... No, start with what you have. Get someone you don't know to buy it. And then continue to learn from that customer and then just keep repeating. Like, just start where you are with what you have and stop trying to make excuses. That's
actually very good advice. But on that note, I just want to say again, thank you very much for your time, for you just coming down. Like, I really appreciate it. So
thank you, guys.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure. For those that are listening, watching, if you want to see a potential part 2 in the future, as the brand continues to go, obviously let us know down below if you like it. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, make sure you share. But it's Get Back season and we'll catch you again for another episode. Take care, guys.
This is Get Back season, baby.